biggest struggles that many people suffer with in this world today is the struggle of greed, wanting more money, wanting more earthly gain. Just something many people can't get enough of. The wish to be wealthy or rich. The hoarding of valuable resources. But when we're talking specifically about like money and wealth, we know that the Bible has a lot to say about it. Something that's very important in the Bible is how we handle ourselves with the items that we have in this world, the hoarding of it, and how we treat it. When it comes to money, there's many mentions of it in the Bible. It's very significant, but not because it's good or bad, but because it reflects on our priorities and our attitudes and how we hold ourselves upright. It acts as an enabler. Money is a gateway into being able to do good or bad things. How we use our money can foster hoarding and greed, just like it can foster generosity and hospitality. Throughout the scriptures, money is often mentioned as a tool. It teaches an important lesson about faith, stewardship, and human behavior. The Bible emphasizes how money can reveal the true nature of a person's heart and their relationship with God. You'll hear very often when people say that money is the root of all evil, and yet that's misconstrued. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10. I'll read both 9 and 10 though. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 9 and verse 10. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation, into a snare, into many senseless and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evils. It is this craving for money that have caused people to wander away from faith. It's the desire to be rich. In this sense, it's the desire for greed and the love of that money that breaks faith. Money itself is very neutral. It's neither good or bad. It only becomes good or bad based on how you use it and your intentions behind it. Take, for example, money can be used to support others in need and provide aid, but on the other hand, it can drive greed, corruption, and unethical actions when people prioritize wealth over values like honesty, compassion, justice, or godliness. The Bible consistently calls for generosity, humility, and trust in the Lord rather than placing our faith in material wealth. But how people treat their money is a very easy way to show where a person places their trust. Take, for instance, Matthew chapter 6, verse 19 through 24, where Jesus says, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasure on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money." This means that people often spend their time on what matters most to them. Does what you spend your money on also align with what matters most to God? Whether it's helping others, satisfying personal desires, or serving God, the Bible encourages people to prioritize their faith and use their money in ways that honors God rather than becoming obsessed with wealth and material possessions. Luke chapter 12, verse 13 through 21. It's the parable of the rich fool. Luke 12, 13 through 21. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." But he said to him, "Man, who made me a judge or arbitrator over you?" And he said to them, "Take care and be on your guard against all covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions." And he told them a parable, saying, "The land of a rich man produced plentifully, and he said to himself, 'What shall I do, for I have nowhere to store my crops?' And he said, 'I will do this. I will tear down my barns and build larger ones. There I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, and be merry.' But God said to him, 'Fool, this night your soul is required of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be?' So this is the one who lays up treasure for himself, is not rich towards God." Another biblical theme is stewardship, the idea that everything ultimately belongs to God. We are trusted to manage that wisely. Deuteronomy 10:14, which says, "Behold, to the Lord your God belong heaven and heaven of heavens, and earth with all that is in it." James 1:17, "Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change." Parables such as the story of the talents, which is Matthew 25:14 through 30, illustrates the concept of using the gifts God gave you in a way that benefits you and others spiritually. In the parable, servants are given money to manage on behalf of their master. The ones who use the money wise are praised, and the ones who do not, out of fear, are rebuked. So let's read Matthew 25, verses 14 through 30, and then break it down. "For it would be like a young man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted them to his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went on at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So also who had 2 talents made 2 talents more. But the one who had received only 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now after a long time the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, 'Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here I have made 5 talents more.' His master said to him, 'Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little, and I will set you over very much. Enter in the joy of your master.' And he also had the 2 talents come forward, saying, 'Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here I have made 2 talents more.' His master said to him, 'Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over very much. Enter the joy of your master.' He who had received the 1 talent came forward, saying, 'Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours.' But his master answered him, 'You wicked and slothful servant. You knew I reap where I had not sown, and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has the 10 talents. For everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness, into the place where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth.'" It's a long read. So, a talent here is just a unit of measure for a weight of either gold or silver. Calculations say that, on speculation, a talent's worth of silver could be as much as $34,000. It was a lot of money. So, picking up from this parable, though, we recognize that the lesson here is not about money, but what we do with what God gave us. Whether that's an ability trait a possession, or an opportunity. The master represents God, and the talents symbolize the gifts, abilities, and opportunities that he provides. The two servants who invest their talents demonstrate faithfulness and responsibility by making the most of what they were given. This teaches us that what God expects of us with our time, skills, and our resources. But the parable also warns us against fear and laziness. The third servant allows fear of failure to paralyze him, leading him to hide the talent rather than taking any risk or trying to grow what was given to him. It's the avoiding responsibility, being overly cautious, and missing opportunities. The master calls the servant wicked and slothful, lazy, emphasizing that God values effort and initiative even if the results were not perfect. We learn that it's better to try and fail than to do nothing at all. Another lesson here is about accountability. When the master returns, he holds each servant accountable for their actions. It reflects the biblical idea that everyone will one day answer for how they have used their blessings and opportunities and how they have conducted themselves about their lives. Those who act faithfully will be rewarded, but those who neglect their responsibilities will face consequences. It's a reminder to live with a purpose, recognizing that our choices have a lasting significance. But do take for an example here in the Old Testament, where the Bible does acknowledge that wealth is and can be a gift from God. Deuteronomy 8:18 and 19. Actually, I believe that's 17 and 18. Deuteronomy 17 and 18, which says, "Beware lest you say in your heart, my power and the might of my hand have gotten me this wealth. You shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, and he may confirm his covenant that he swore to your fathers as it is this day." So, wealth alone is not sinful. It's the means in which you gained it, the means in which you use it. Many biblical figures, such as Abraham, Job, King Solomon, wealthy, but still honored God. Their wealth was often seen as an evidence of God's favor, as long as it did not lead them astray. Take, for example, though, that King Solomon's wealth did lead him astray. We know that King Solomon's greed led to hundreds of wives, hundreds of concubines, and a loss of his faith. God eventually pulled the kingdom out from under him for this actions. So 1 Kings 11, verses 1 through 12. 1 Kings 11, 1 through 12. Now King Solomon loved many foreign women, along with the daughter of Pharaoh, Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Sidonian, and Hittite women. From the nations concerning which the Lord had said to the people of Israel, "You shall not enter into marriage with them, neither shall they with you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods." Solomon clung to these in love. He had 700 wives who were princesses and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. For when Solomon was old, his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not wholly true to the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his father. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. So Solomon did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and did not wholly follow the Lord, as David his father had done. Then Solomon built a high place for Shamash, the abomination of Moab, and for Moloch, the abomination of Ammonites, on the mountain east of Jerusalem. And so he did for all his foreign wives, who made offerings and sacrifice to their gods. And the Lord was angry with Solomon, because his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice, and he had commanded him concerning these things that he should not go after other gods. But he did not keep what the Lord commanded. Therefore the Lord said to Solomon, since this has been your practice, and you have not kept my covenant and my statutes that I have commanded you, I will surely tear the kingdom from you and give it to your servant. Yet for the sake of David your father, I will not do it in your days, but I'll tear it out of the hand of your son. So, I have a question. How would you respond if you suddenly acquired an extreme amount of wealth? What would you do with it? Would you remain grounded in your values, or would the attraction to luxury and power corrupt your heart, just as the same as it did for King Solomon? Solomon, said to be the wisest man in biblical history, started his reign with a deep devotion to God, and yet his great wealth and power ultimately led him astray. It's just a sobering question. Would we fall into the same trap as King Solomon did? Imagine yourself in his position. Humble beginnings, asking God not for riches or fame, but for wisdom to lead people. God granted this request and in addition blessed him with unparalleled wealth, honor, and power. Solomon built a magnificent temple for the Lord. His kingdom flourished beyond imagination. But over time, his heart turned away from God. He amassed vast amounts of gold, constructed extravagant palaces, hundreds of wives, hundreds of concubines, many of whom worshipped foreign gods. Would the same temptations that got King Solomon, would they overwhelm you? Wealth, money, riches, whatever you want to call it, often magnifies our desires, which exposes our weaknesses. For Solomon, his great wealth made him complacent and very, very indulgent. He drew his focuses away from God and towards his worldly pleasures. Would you, like Solomon, begin to trust in riches rather than in God? Would you become consumed with acquiring more, even at the expense of others, your spiritual health, or your relationships? Like I had said earlier, wealth alone is not inherently bad, but is a dangerous test of your character. Just think of the subtlety of how greed and pride slowly wears away at you and destroys you. Solomon may not have intended to stray from God, but little by little, his priorities began to shift. Would you allow the same thing to happen to you? Would you rationalize small compromises, telling yourself that it's okay to hoard this and a little bit of that, that your greed is just a sign of God's favor as you grow ever distant from the Lord? What about the responsibilities that come with wealth? Solomon had every resource to care for his people, and yet his later years were marked by heavy taxes, heavy taxes and forced labor to sustain his lifestyle. Would you use your wealth to serve others, or would you begin to prioritize your comfort above the needs of those around you? Would you remain generous, or would wealth make you selfish and blind to the struggles of others? Would your heart remain faithful to God, or would you be drawn to idols, just as Solomon was? With wealth and riches comes influence, and influence invites the temptation to align with worldly values instead of godly ones. Solomon's love for many women turned him away from God and turned him towards falsehood. Would you have the strength to stand firm, or would the pressure to conform lead you down a similar path? Think about how the love of money can change a relationship. Would your loved ones see the same person they knew before, or would it change you? Would you use what was given to you to bless those around you, or would you allow it to make you isolated, unable to trust whether people value you for who you are or for what you have? Solomon, in all his glory, ended his life far from the humble, God-fearing king he once was. Would you share the same fate? So, with all this in mind, if you are blessed with great riches and wealth and prosperity, would you stay faithful, humble, and generous, or would wealth turn you away from what truly matters? Great riches is not key to happiness. If anything, it only makes you more of what you already are. If you're greedy with money and you get more money, it's only going to make you greedier. If you struggle with depression or some form of sadness and you come across a great deal of money, it's only going to make the hole in your heart bigger. It's not going to fix it. It's why we need to remind ourselves to be happy with what we have. Take for example, what Paul wrote in Philippians chapter 4, verses 11 through 13. So Philippians 4, 11 through 13. Not that I'm speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound in any and every circumstance. I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. Paul reminds us that our contentment doesn't depend on our circumstances, but more so on trusting in God's provision and faithfulness. Earlier, I had read 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 9 and 10. But this is 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 6 through 8, leading up to it. 1 Timothy 6, 6 through 8. But godliness with contentment is great gain, for we brought nothing into the world, and we cannot take anything out of the world. But if we have food and clothing, with these we'll be content. And then to reread verses 9 and 10 again. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation, into a snare, into many senseless and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. It is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs. And then I'd also like to read Hebrews chapter 13, verses 5 and 6. Actually, I think I missed this one. Okay, yeah. Hebrews 13, verses 5 and 6. Keep your life free from love of money and be content with what you have, for he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. So we can confidently say, the Lord is my helper, I will not fear. What can man do to me? And here's another long read. Ecclesiastes 5, verses 8 through 20. Ecclesiastes 5, verses 8 through 20. If you see in a province the oppression of the poor and the violation of justice and righteousness, do not be amazed at the matter, for the high official is watched by a higher, and there are higher ones over him. But this is the gain for a land in every way, a king committed to cultivating fields. He who loves money will not be satisfied with money, nor he who loves wealth with his income. This also is vanity. When goods increase, they increase who eat them. And what advantage has their owner but to see them with his eyes? Sweet is the sleep of a laborer, whether he eats little or much, but the full stomach of the rich, who will not let him sleep. There is a grievous evil that I have seen under the sun. Riches were kept by their owner. Riches were kept by their owner to his hurt, and those riches were lost in a bad venture. And he is the father of a son, but he has nothing in his hand. And he came from his mother's womb, he shall go again, naked as he came, and shall take nothing for his toil, that he may carry away in his hand. This also is a grievous evil. Just as he came, so shall he go. And what gain is there to him who toils for the wind? Moreover, all his days he eats in darkness, in much vexation, and sickness, and anger. Behold, I have seen to be good and fitting is to eat and drink, and find enjoyment, and all the toil with which one toils under the sun, the few days of his life that God has given it. For this is his lot. Everyone who also to whom God has given wealth and possessions and power to enjoy them, and to accept this lot, and rejoice in his toil, this is the gift of God. For he will not much remember the days of his life, because God keeps him occupied with joy in his heart. The biblical perspective for having great riches, wealth, prosperity, it serves as a reminder that material possessions are fleeting and that we should never allow them to take priority over our relationship with the Lord. Scripture teaches us that wealth is not inherently good or evil, but it's a tool that is entrusted to us for stewardship, generosity, and service. The challenge lies in how we choose to use it, whether we use it for selfish gain or use it to honor God, uplift, and help others. True prosperity is not found in the accumulation of riches, but found in contentment, like the example that I gave where Paul wrote in Philippians 4, where contentment comes from relying on God's strength regardless of our circumstances. Whether we face abundance or scarcity, we are called to trust in God's provision and to live in a way that reflects His love and His grace. Ultimately, where we place our treasure reveals where our heart lies within us. By anchoring our lives in God and His values, we resist the temptations of greed and selfishness, using our resources to build His kingdom rather than to try and build our own. So, we need to work to remain humble, faithful, and generous, recognizing that everything we have is a gift from God. And one day we will give an account of how we managed the blessings that have been given to us. So if anyone has any need this morning, come forward and let your wishes be made known as together we stand and while we sing.